Sorry, David Al. I'm co-chair with John of this roundtable. I'm currently a project manager and scrum master at TC, working on some cloud projects. Enjoying the heck out of it.
Steve Fenton. I work for a company called Cohesion, which is right down the street, and we're consulting kind of several different things, but consulting, staffing, and content development.
Jim Stewart, independent project manager and consultant and trainer.
Wes Cathcart, I work as a PM here at Leahy, and the IT PMO, managing plethora of projects.
I'm Chuck Tewksbury. I'm a senior project manager at Aqueduct Technologies, FAR down in Waltham. We're a big Cisco partner and cloud partner for a bunch of different OEMs.
I'm Mike Warbler, and I work at TD Bank, America's most convenient bank. And I'm a project manager and accounting manager working on regulatory reporting for Dodd-Frank.
They're brave words for a Canadian bank.
Energy.
John Gagnon, co-chair with Ari of the Roundtable. I work as an operations manager in radiology informatics here at Leahy Hospital. Can you get that open?
It's still not, oh, there it is, no. Let me just see if I can, there's my.
Security. Yeah, so it's the, right there, opening science.
Okay. Let me just send that. That's good.
Yeah.
And you can see it on.
Yeah, I have it on mine, so
Perfect.
remote use.
Perfect.
So this is Josh Brickman. I'm on the phone. I guess maybe I'm the only one today from Oracle.
Hey, Josh.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Eloisa Marquez Gonzalez from Architect Consulting. Also on the phone.
Welcome. Anyone else? Yeah. Oh, actually.
Yeah, well, why don't you go to this?
Fine. Here's today's agenda. We're going to run into upcoming events. Then Ankur will present about 8:20. I'll do the 5-minute signal, and we'll leave time for closing comments at 8:25, and we'll all be out of here at 8:30 and on to our 9 o'clock meeting. Just to mention that we have 11 roundtables. I should mention Metro West is actually now not a roundtable, but something different that involves DAs and PMPs. John Morrison running that, so if you have questions, contact John or I'd be happy to put you in touch. We have 3 subject area roundtables: healthcare, Agile is here, right? So we have a circle for it on our chart, but that is no longer present. And we have the PMO group that meets in Woburn. That's after this roundtable, one of my favorites. There are 2 in downtown Boston, one early in the morning like this one, and one at noontime. We'll work downtown and take some time out for lunch. And you can always find us online. Just go to PMI Mass Bay. No longer need to round in. You just go to Roundtables and then MetroNorth. I should mention that you can also go to, for those who are used to signing up to these, just go to myeventguru.com and search for MetroNorth. And that'll bring you all of the scheduled MetroNorth events. So, today's treat, Journey to the Cloud, Real Challenges with Real Answers. Ankur will be presenting. He started his career as a technologist, and then he moved to being a project manager and into management and strategy consulting. He's worked in diverse industries from pharma, insurance, marketing, and high tech, created and led enterprise PMOs for medium and large companies. As a PMI practitioner, he used traditional methodologies very effectively, but over the last decade, he's transitioned to Agile. He successfully implemented Agile Scrum in an enterprise rollout. He promotes the concept of start small and change the culture in organizations by implementing Agile at the level and building momentum to create a scaled enterprise agility. SAFe certified practitioner. Ankur has lived and worked in local New England over the past decades, and I'm really looking forward to the talk.
Thank you, Ari.
Over to you.
And this is a treat because the shortest commute, I live like 3 miles away from here. So thank you very much.
That's how I snagged him. We were having lunch one day, and he said, "Oh, well, I live in Burlington." I said, "Well."
Yeah, I'm just next town over in Lexington, lived there a bunch of years, and thank you very much. And it's really good, actually, I should say, to come back to PMI. I used to be PMP certified, and I couldn't keep up with my continuing units, lost my certification twice in my career. and by that time, I sort of almost gave up, and so it's like, let's move on to different things like Agile, and it was a good fit for my personality. And, this particular session, what I want to do is I want to take you guys. It's a very interactive session. I've done this with 200 people, and I've done it with 5 people in a room, and I'd like to keep it interactive. There's a lot of buzz around cloud, and PMs get stuck with it, and they're like sort of handed off, just like go figure it out kind of thing is still there. There's a lot of ambiguity in how cloud works. There's a lot of concerns of security. There's a lot of whys. There's a lot of issues of job security. I'm seeing it across the board. Like a lot of technologists who grew up in traditional technology suddenly find themselves that they cannot. Large globs of companies like Amazon and Microsoft are sucking up all the oxygen in the room for cloud. So where do these technologists go if they're not needed in small companies? So it affects us as PMs and managers on how we really manage projects because of all these issues sort of filter into our projects. And so, when Ari and I were having lunch a couple of weeks, 4 or 5 weeks ago maybe, he mentioned, and I said, okay, I'm glad. And I can retrofit this. Like I said, I've practiced being a PM for almost 20 years, and I can talk from your perspective, understand some of the challenges you guys face. So, feel free to stop me. I have a sort of a agenda, but there's literally, I can just spend 2 hours on one slide on this agenda. And I call it the big picture. It's a model which I created about 3 years ago. And as I'm doing each implementation and I'm working with various program managers and project managers, I'm walking them through this. I've honed it up very well. I've spoken about this at large, Dreamforce, like 70,000 people conference, and Oracle Open World. This one particular, I've not changed too much from the presentation which I gave at the HCM Open World in Boston, which was early in the spring. About 10,000 people had come to that conference, right down Copley. Very interactive sessions. I will not do some of the interactive stuff for large crowds. I use like a very poll everywhere, and you can poll and you can see each other's responses in an aggregated way. But I'll talk about this big picture, and what does this big picture mean? This big picture is sort of rooted in the traditional, ways on how we used to think of the PMI 9 steps. And it sort of mirrors my own thinking. And then it moved into a very agile-centric picture, and that's what you see in the center of the picture. But I'll stop here, and I'll sort of take a pause for folks on the phone or folks in the room, and really, I'll follow the sort of agile process where you do a sprint 0 and then you take a pause and say, how did you do? So I gave you some primer into this, and I'll take a pause and we'll do a, maybe 1,800-second retrospective and then see, is this something, how would you like me to format today's session? What is your expectations? You must have read my bio earlier, and what would you like? This is your time. I'm almost like a PM, like a facilitator, and I can walk you, guide you.
And one of the things we're doing at my company is software as a service projects where we're implementing Cisco WebEx and Spark as a cloud offering to some of our customers.
Right.
So I'm interested in understanding how the traditional project management principles can actually apply this kind of amorphous thing that's out there. And what looks like on the surface should be a simple register and go kind of thing, when in fact there's more to it, especially around user adoption efforts, training efforts, that kind of thing, and seeing those tasks populating my project plan instead of the traditional implementation tasks. I used to be primarily an infrastructure PM, so I'm used to server storage, cabling, network, and so this is up a level from that.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, that absolutely makes sense. I've used. I also I did a 3-year stint in infrastructure, and I actually moved a little away from traditional. And I won't call PMI methodologies now. I call them traditional methodologies because I've used Prince also when I lived in Europe. So I clubbed them under the umbrella of traditional technology. So I moved from some of these traditional technologies to a very Kanban focus because it's very well suited. Agile is not very suited for infrastructure kind of work. And I can talk to that as well.
Okay, great.
Yeah. What else?
I'd like to hear more about that when you get to why Agile is not suited for certain infrastructure work is more like your why.
Sure. Yeah, we can talk about that as well. And then if you guys want, I can come back and have a very agile versus why agile technologies. I've done that a lot. I've built, in large enterprises like banks. Actually, I forget you were from the bank. I've actually put, large agile roadmaps in banks, and so I can talk to agile road mapping, how to deploy agile as well. So. But I'll pick that question up for you. So let me spend a couple of minutes on just this. And this is something, as we approach the cloud, and you get handed, like, you have to do a project, like infrastructure rollout or something, it becomes extremely hard as PMs to sort of coordinate with folks who understand the content. Maybe business analysts, maybe cloud architects, some users, and it's where do you start? Where's the initiation step? And how do you build your plans out? What do you do? Because it suddenly when you are implementing a traditional software or other infrastructure kind of stuff, there's still a lot of a body of knowledge where, these are the various tasks you can do. You can Google them, and you can actually get good project plans just by Googling, and it's not hard for project managers. But then you go to the cloud, and it's like, whoa, it's Wild West. So, and this is where what I did. I built this, 6 base structures, and you can use this for selling cloud in the organization, which I just did. We sold a $15 million project in my current company, and using this model. And it took me 2.5 years of sort of chipping away at it But, it was a large capital investment, but they understood it. So in the cloud, it's important to have a step called goals and guiding principles. And it's really important as project management professionals to understand and put that as a step. Like, have the goals of this project and what are the guiding principles, and I can go a little deeper in that. There's enough understanding out there right now in public domain of what is a cloud architecture. Because there's like iPaaS, PaaS, and SaaS, and all kinds of acronyms out there. And there's enough good public domain certified knowledge on basics of cloud architecture. I would say, just go spend a Sunday afternoon with a beer and read it up, and it'll be very fruitful. So that is important of what we're doing. As project management professionals also, we get tagged with the budgeting sides also. So it's extremely important to build some level of ROI or budgeting, because it'll come to harangue you always on your projects. So that's the top. And there's a reason for this madness, why I've laid it out this way. Once you've done some of those, then it's important to understand how to build some kind of road mapping in the cloud. Because the way you roadmap from a traditional Gantt chart way is different from the way you go into the cloud. And that is why sort of these agile principles come in. And I'll answer your question from that context when I get there. What do you do with what stuff gets left behind? It's what I call the legacy architectures. You have to build plans to transition people off. Well, what do you do with, a lot of data which exists there, a lot of folks who are in those teams, and how do you transition that out? And this is the reason why I put this in this corner, because the cornerstone of this is you gotta do some kind of a product and vendor analysis. And because there's players, and then there are players, Cisco, Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, they all offer some kind of clouds. SAP is trying to do it. All these large players are there. And the cloud, the beauty of the cloud is that it's, and I say this as a good thing, is that it's one size doesn't fit all. So what suits your organizations where you guys are working is extremely important, that sort of marriage happens very amicably. Because what is good for your organization may not be good. If you're going to go the Amazon cloud, it may not be good for the way Amazon might try to sell it to you, or the way Oracle works, or the way SAP works. So it's extremely important that all your stakeholders are very well entrenched in terms of understanding what their guiding principles are and what their, yes.
So you're saying the cloud isn't the cloud?
Correct.
Okay.
And the reason I'm saying that a cloud is not a cloud is because some of our understanding of traditional vendor relationships, traditional product analysis is still very, very relevant. Because you search the surface, and then the cloud guys will say, you can ask them, or your content people can ask them, so how will this work? And some of this stuff is still very same. So let me give you something very simple to chew upon. This presentation is hosted by him on his laptop. If I were to run it from his laptop, I'm actually renting his laptop as a cloud space. And that's all what a cloud is. A lot of buzz and hype. If my computer is in my data centers 2 floors down, I still don't go and sit on the computer in the data center room. I access it from my laptop now. Now, in that sense, that computer could be sitting 2 floors down, or it could be in Seattle, or it could be in France. How do we care? So that is, so behind all this hype that's the basis. So once you understand that, all what we did for the last 20, 30 years comes back and works very well. Yes,
I was going to say there's some significant differences. I'm currently working on cloud projects using two very different vendors. The different vendors, their offerings will be shaped in part by their history. So with Microsoft, we've set up this whole support network, taking advantage of the fact that if our customer support people are Microsoft developers, they are in essence launching their instances and using Microsoft products as developers. We don't have to pay for that. If we moved over to Amazon, they would just be looking at pure cycles and what we're using in different resources. So as you make your planning, part of it is what is my relationship? What are the other affordances that take part of that relationship? So even as it was true with physical infrastructure, that your deals with different vendors or the way you work with vendors would shape an enterprise project, the same is true on the cloud.
Absolutely. And that's why product and vendor analysis is placed there, and it's placed diagrammatically opposite where your goals are. And so that's why I said you start with what you want to do, and then those should mirror, because some of these cloud vendors can do something very different than what your goals are. And the same way I put our ROI and revenue cash analysis business case opposite the roadmap. The reason I've done that is our roadmap, how we spend in the cloud, is very different from the way we used to spend on the on-premise realm. So the way capitalization work, way expenses work in the financial terms is very different. And sometimes as PMs, it's extremely important that we understand that, because if we are doing that kind of budgeting, and we have to sometimes convince the finance folks, they may not even understand. A lot of cloud spend is on the expense side of the house. Implementation can be capitalized. So those are some of the nuances. Let me just, I will not pick up some of the blues because that is something more deeper, but let me sort of jump into this. One last thing. The reason why I've put this graphic in the middle is I call it the crawl, walk, run, whatever. And in this iterative way, I put it, you could do this whole cycle in 3 weeks. And so that is why I said, Agile will work very well, because you could write a guiding principle by being in a room like this for an hour and get all the stakeholders together. Probably that'll take more time to get them together, but once you got them together, facilitate a sessions like what is the guiding principle, have a couple of folks who are experts in the cloud, and come out with guiding principles. In a couple of afternoons, you could come out with a very quick cloud architecture. You could do a very high level just mapping of how you're going to do your cash or rev rec analysis. You can create a long list of vendors by doing a couple of Google searches and saying what fits in this. You could start mapping out your legacy architecture. You could get your BAs and some of the technologists to say, give me architecture in a page. You have 3 days to do it, and whatever you can do in 3 days, that's the way Agile works, right? We gave you 3 days, you build us something what you're achievable in 3 days. And based on all these principles, you can create some kind of a roadmap, project plan. Right? So in 3 weeks, you can at least achieve that, and that's what I call Sprint Zero. Now you're starting to learn how to crawl. Spend another 3 to 4 weeks, you could start crawling a little faster. And if you iterate through this again and again, and you'll be amazed that last summer, and I'll give you, in my company we had a ticketing system which was almost 18 years old, and most ticketing systems are that old because it's not funded, it's not really in your sort of always in the center of your business, unless you're a telephone company or something. So our ticketing system was kind of working. It was painful to work with, but it was working. And it had, we were getting about 2,000 tickets a day. So who wants to do the sharpening the saw thing? It's like let's continue on. We did this whole process last year, and in 8 weeks we set up a new ticketing system. 8 weeks. There were times 10, 12 years ago, it would basically take me 8 weeks to write up a project charter. Right?
Well, it'll still take you about 2 months.
Well, our SOX guys wanted a traditional project charter. By the time we were done rolling out, the project charter was getting signed up. But we had already rolled out our pilot in 8 weeks. We rolled the pilot for 3 weeks, and by week 12, we were live. So, and this is about 6,000 people get on the system, put on about 2,000 tickets, and we're done. I am changing our people system of record. It's a 12-year-old antiquated system, and it's Oracle. We were going to do our first, we got in a room for 3 weeks. We flew people for 1 week out of those 3 weeks on site from all our HR departments across the world. And at the end of the 4th week, I had a prototype running on my phone. Ari was asking me while you guys are getting settled in, hey, I heard you implemented Jira or are implementing Jira. Jira is a ALM tool. A lot of you guys probably have used it in the old world of doing issue management or requirements management. We literally got together, a bunch of guys in a room for 2 afternoons. Like I said, the goal was you finish this in 2 afternoons. At the end of Friday afternoon, you get a beer. So, and we literally implemented it over 2 afternoons. And today's Wednesday. Monday, 2 project managers started putting their stories and requirements in Jira. The catch was our SOX and compliance guys have just not caught on to this, and so we're implementing it for all non-SOX, and we'll run it for 3-4 months while they get caught on, and then we'll turn over those projects also. So this is some of the fun. So as project managers, we have to just sort of completely retool ourselves to think of these real fast timelines. And it is being done. I was not a believer till 3 years ago. And now I'm able to understand that what cloud is offering is a very good mix with agile principles. So you can do this very quickly. Like I said, you could do these entire things in a couple of weeks, do what's called a sprint zero, and then launch yourself. Yeah. So it's 8 a.m. We have 25 minutes left. I'm going to go through a bunch of slides to go, I'll peeling the onion here. I'll go a little deeper, but I'll pause for more questions. Anyone on the phone?
It's interesting that you pair agile cloud development. I teach a class in cloud development. We actually spend a week on how cloud tools, the ability to have your infrastructure in place at the click of a button, that you can respond to change very quickly. So it fits to a degree that the agile mindset categories rather than stand up this and stand up that milestones. And something now called DevOps, this idea that you just keep changing. You don't necessarily divide into releases, unless, I mean, they're often reasons for release.
So another reason why a lot of this will change in the next 5 to 7 years is we have this is the cultural aspect, is we have a millennial population coming into our workforce by droves, and baby boomers are retiring also by droves. These millennials, if I look at my kids, they grew up on these devices. It's not called a phone anymore because they won't respond to their phones. They'll only respond to the text. Right? This quick JIRA project, which I talked to you about, in 2 afternoons, it was not just on my laptop. It was, if I go here, it is on my phone. So that means, it comes mobile ready. Now, from a culture aspect, what is happening in most at least technology-leaning companies is what we're doing is, our millennial population is walking in through the door. Literally, they are being asked to check in their phones at the reception and then come and work on these antiquated systems and ways of working. Right? And this population grew up on these devices. So and then we ask them almost sort of green screen way, but in a browser, to come and work. And then we say, it'll take me 8 weeks to do a project charter, and it'll take me 12 weeks. The level of frustration I'm seeing in the millennial population, I have a team of like 8 interns in some of the areas in my projects which I'm working with. I have about 20% of my entire teams are millennials, and I can see the frustration when we tell them, like, we're in the project chartering phase, we're in the initiation phase, or we are in execution phase. They also do not think like that. This sort of way of working works very well with the population which is coming in, and it's like I said, it's mobile ready. They can do most of the stuff on their devices. However, there are security concerns. And if we can manage around the security concerns, then it's a win-win for, the next. And that's what I said, the next 2 to 3 years, 4 years will be really interesting because we will overcome the security concerns. The security on these devices is way much more than it has ever been. I can get mugged and my wallet get taken away. If I have Apple Pay on this, there's no way in hell somebody can take my phone and do Apple Pay because it's fingerprinted, unless they cut my thumb off or something.
It's an interesting point on that. I heard that there's some generic fingerprints, that 60% of fingerprints can be hacked with that generic fingerprint. So they have to deal with that now. It's just something I heard yesterday.
Yeah, there are, because you can create a 3D printed skin, right? Well, I work in a company where we are manufacturing 3D printed kidneys using our software. So we're in a fantastic age.
Back and forth.
In addition to which, let's not pretend we're secure. Every day of the week, somebody gets hacked.
Of course.
Every day of the week.
Yeah.
Like, there's no protection. Might not even have it.
There's. I lived in New York City in the early '90s. In 1 year, I got mugged 3 times. Right. So, probably lost $100 the whole year, but once it came pretty close. But so let me go back into this. I'll spend the next 10-15 minutes sort of running through this, and if you guys want, I can always come back for a version 2 on this. So start small, iterate and start small with my first bullet. we created, this is a sample of one of the programs which I was running, where we created, as you can see, there's like 7 bullets, and that's it. We're running a $5 million program on these 7 bullets of guiding principles. But every time we have an issue, every time a stakeholder is, shaking his head or her head, we go back to this every time. My project manager is a fantastic guy, and he's like, he actually created some index cards and printed them on index cards, and he keeps them handy like visiting cards here every time he runs the steering committee. And he's like, start of the Bible study group, he reads them out every time, and he's fantastic. He's like, this is what you guys gave me. I'm going to make sure, or we should go and change it. Then we go back to the drawing board. So it's extremely important. But what is important is that, some of the things that I'm saying, make them bold, gain some consensus, and folks in the room, as leaders, you can really drive some of these things very well. And no one else other than PMs and Scrum Masters can drive it. Because, we've been around, people. In the end, it's all people in communication, right? So that is one. And here's a deeper example of another one where we called it strategic signposts. They didn't want guiding principles in this group, so wordsmith it or fit it to whatever you guys like it. In this program, they wanted strategic signposts, so we called them that. Just examples. Here's was a very simple one, four guiding principles, and we said in this one, this is from October 2016. We're going to keep sticking to this, guys, and we go through this, and there's some sense of road mapping here, some sense of how the approach we're taking, some sense of how we're going to deploy. So some technology, some process, some people type stuff, what kind of vendors we're going to use. So, this team agreed on these 4, and we said, okay, we will not put the 5th or 6th we don't agree on.
Another question. When I've done enterprise-wide software in the past, part of the reason it takes so long to build up that charter is just the long process of requirements and the deep customization we're going to do. But now we're talking, focus on what can you use out of the box,
right,
and build on that instead.
Correct. Yes, that's absolutely correct. From a cloud computing perspective, Sprint Zero, just go out of the box. So, we can talk more deeply about technology and cloud deployments, but I always say no company in this time and age is very unique. Most of our processes are very standard. 80% of our processes are standard because a lot of companies have built software over the past 2 decades and have standardized these processes. The way a badge gets created, it's very standard. We have a printer like this. You can email a photograph to the security office. You give them some kind of an ID, social or your driving license. They'll run a quick check and done. You want to go procure a printer or procure a hardware. It's a pretty standard process. The areas where companies need to be creative is very small, and that is their uniqueness. So out of that, let's take the riffraff out and build standard process. And in the cloud, the more quickly you can get on the standard process, that's why I said 8 to 10 weeks. We're done. This was a biggie, and this is hard. Mapping our legacy architecture. This is a quote which I've used since my early days in PMI in late 90s, actually. This is from my favorite book, Alice in Wonderland. And, it's the cat and Alice having a dialogue, and, the value of a map or where we're going, it's really important. And if you don't have some kind of a map, then it becomes extremely complex. So you can see here, these two maps is something which I've created in my past lives. You can see like the amount of boxes. This is an HR process. When I joined my current company, I spent the first 2 months just doing interviews and talking to people and saying like, what do you do? How do you do? And I found 21 HR systems existing in this company. This is $1.25 billion, $1.25 billion company. So it's not that big. 21 HR systems. Later on, I found 18 learning systems. So when I put this map in front of our CHRO, she like holy cow! No wonder I can't get any work done. So it's extremely important to show that. And of course, I'm a technologist, so I was able to do it. But I also practice project management, so it was not that hard for me to gain technology help and some other help and get this done very quickly. This was a recent one which I did. We have a $20 million infrastructure invested in a lot of our systems, and you can see many different vendors, many different types of systems, and color coding here. We wanted to knock all of these out, and you can see different vendors who are supporting these systems. So no wonder it's a very hard mess. What we did was I built this out. I turned this thing on its head, where I said in the center of the universe is high complexity and high risk, and then we pick up stuff which is easy and go from outside to inside. Actually, when I built this out, we decided we're going to actually pick up some of the stuff in the middle. Our executives wanted to do the hard thing. I was quite surprised actually when they said, "Oh yeah, let's hit the middle, and let's not go really close to the center, but let's hit the middle." And this is what I said earlier about my $15 million project, and I was able to get a bunch of these things knocked off. And again, using an agile methodology, 6-8 months, getting it knocked off. Cloud architecture. It's important to understand what is cloud architecture. All our roles change, and which is really important to as PM professionals to understand how the roles are going to be different. There are going to be different roles in the team. People, after it's deployed, what do you do with folks who are left behind? Because now you don't have someone servicing your computer, it's up in the cloud. So you have to start thinking of that, because it affects livelihood, and PMs are really important folks to sort of bring those issues up to the table and say, guys, like, we're doing this, so let's plan those things out as well. Put that in my change management plan, and which sort of couples very well with your regular deployment plan. So that's important as well. So I'm going to take a brief pause here and talk about your question about user adoption here. User adoption gets hit a lot because you're going to the cloud. Folks, so for example, we had a real hard time in our European offices where they have strange laws of 47.5 working hours in France versus 48 in the quarter in Germany versus how much of my information can be up in the cloud and where is this cloud? Because we have safe harbor laws and all that kind of stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I know. So my legal counsels were asking me questions like, so where does this data lie? It lies in the cloud, and where is this cloud? So one of the things we talked to them was about if the data you're accessing in Germany lies in France, it's okay, right? Yes, it's okay. Do you know that when you access the data which exists in France, but you access in Germany, it can come via US or Hawaii or anywhere. That's the internet. And the legal folks had no idea. So I said, if it lies in US, how hard is that? And so even European Union has changed some of their laws. So now our security concerns are different in Europe than they were even 2 years ago. In fact, U.S. has harder HIPAA laws than there are HIPAA laws in Europe. So tables are sort of turned for some of the sort of legacy controls perspective. But so when folks are using the cloud, their user adoption can go very down because they don't trust the data, they don't know what's on there. Shall I give permission for my data to lie up there? So there's a PII kind of issues there. So we have to make sure that user adoption strategy is built into our plans. So if you're thinking of all these issues, then say, how do we address them through change management techniques and build that into a plan? So extremely important to do that. You had asked another questions about regular PM principles, how they apply, and with me. Okay, 3 hours. Like, sorry about that. Yeah, not clicking.
You can't really have it.
I've had it. What it does.
Yeah, it says 4 hours.
Yeah, that's what I said before.
It just moved the window. Software center.
Default on top.
Okay, wait a second, guys. Let me just. Sorry about that. Our security folks at work.
They're in the cloud, right?
They're in the cloud. I could do this. Okay, I can move the windows. Yeah.
There you go.
So as we are, working through all this, our traditional approaches are just being time sliced smaller, and our traditional approach tasks are being sliced smaller. So how I explain traditional approach project management versus new approach project management is I use a deli counter kind of concept. I remember years and years ago, I did a project in Italy, and they didn't have these fancy machines which will slice the salami. You'd go to a butcher, and they'd use a butcher sort of knife and sort of slice it for you. That's a traditional approach. It tasted really good though, but you go to a salami counter and you can get the slices thinner and thinner. So that is where we are. So the task management and the task identification still is there. Our challenge is to put these in thin slices and put them in sprints. So that is, if that makes sense. So I just put some cloud patterns there. As you can see, there's a concept of public cloud. There's a concept of private cloud on one end. There's outsourced public cloud. So there's a lot of this technology there. And if you guys want, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send a link out to some of these base patterns. It's all .org, so folks can have a look. Perfect. So you know this. I'm going to get out. We have 5 minutes remaining. This approach has not changed for me since my days of using traditional methodologies, is to do a deep vendor analysis. Sometimes our vendors may or may not use an agile process, but you can tease out little pieces of information from them. extremely important to understand how they will work in your environment, what kind of demos they'll do, what kind of reference calls, and all that kind of good stuff. So as PMs, it sometimes becomes like, did you get the reference call scheduled, or things like that. Is to think through the entire thing. Work with procurement teams, and there's a lot of areas around that, and to get these contracts set up, and that has all that stuff still there. There's not much change from that perspective. And the way you do RFIs and RFPs is sometimes it's just that you can push them, and it works very well because you can get an RFI and RFP done nowadays in 36 hours and 20 because there are standard templates. So most companies leverage standard templates. Once you have that, you also look at implementation partners, and because in the cloud that happens a lot. This is a fun one, and this has also not changed. It's again, thin slices of the deli counter. However, what is important is that you build a 1-2-year roadmap. I used to use a concept called solid, slushy, and liquid. As the next 8 to 10 weeks will be solid because you understand that. 12 to 20 weeks will be slushy. And after 20 weeks, who knows, like 1 year out, everything can change in this world nowadays. That's all liquid. So, but having come from a traditional methodology perspective, well, let's plan for it. Even if it is liquid, let's plan for it. So that's what I do, and you can see that orientation. And I've not used even Microsoft Project because it's like costs a lot of money to have licenses, everyone. So I took Project, did the real work in Project, and then used the new Project timeline feature, copied and pasted it, and put it in an Excel spreadsheet. So, so those, and this is some kind of a business case ROI. It's important to get your finance folks in the cloud understanding this. So we had to build something like that. There's like the cost side and the benefits. And you guys are probably much better on this than I am. So, and sort of to present this whole thing together, I've used the concept of design thinking also, is to think holistic and use design thinking principles embedded those in my PM techniques. So that's important that when you present this very holistically so people understand that. And that's how I've come back to this. So you've seen guiding principles, cloud architecture, some ROI, some vendor analysis, legacy architecture, and roadmap. I'll leave it at that with 5 minutes to just have an open conversation. Give me some feedback so I can incorporate it in my next presentation. What do you guys think?
Hey, Ankur, it's Josh on the phone. I just wanted to say, great presentation. We should definitely catch up. It's been a long time. I will say this, being at Oracle, we're usually the ones sort of receiving the customers who are implementing the cloud deployment of their technology. So it's fascinating to see it from the other side. So really interesting perspective for me. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. And actually, I may be speaking at the Open World this fall on some of these models. So, but we should catch up. It's long due. Josh and I worked together years ago.
Yep.
It was that whole question of why Agile doesn't lend itself to infrastructure work.
So yes, sorry about that. So infrastructure work typically is a lot of tickets. Do small things constantly. And each ticket or each piece of work is very discrete, and it has a very time-bound sensitivity towards it, right? So when we build traditional projects, if you to go talk to infrastructure technologists, it's like, I don't know, like there's like 500 tasks I need to do. And it'll take me more time to tell you the tasks and to put it in a plan than for me to execute them. And then you say, okay, that's fine. So you put some time box techniques and say, okay, here's your backlog. At least have these tasks, and as they come in, do it in a Kanban way. Kanban is really on a daily basis. So what you can do is you can do estimation of this task and do broad brush examples of like, okay, each task will take 2 hours. Okay, how many tasks you did last quarter or last month? And so you can use those techniques and say, I need 3 resources to do that. And then you run them, and then you get your budgets based on that, rather than from a project perspective. So a little different, so bottoms up kind of approach, and then stop at, resources and task is, because guys in infrastructure can do 20 tasks in a day, right? And then they hate to be sort of micromanaged because these guys are pretty good with what they do. So that is how I approach this. And that's why you put them like Jira or some of these products which have a very good Kanban. Because if you put them in a 2-week sprint cycle or 1-month project cycle, it doesn't work for these guys.
I have kind of a squishy question for you. The millennials, that could probably be many sessions or something like that, but it occurred to me, do you think that they're better suited for an agile?
They are fantastically better suited for
I guess I never
agile.
thought of sort of
There's too much ADHD there. Yes, they're very well suited, and I've seen some of the millennial population are the better stars on all of my projects. And in some of my outsourced teams, actually they push the limits on the folks who have more longevity and tenure, and it's amazing. So it feeds off. And then it's sort of the folks who've had the wisdom to work through and have seen the problem, so they give that kind of wisdom back to the team. So, but right off the bat, millennials are way much suited for agile projects.
Yeah. There's another piece that I was asked to write a blog post for IAL, and that's just student learning, and it was about why millennials are good fit for agile. But it's also because a lot of millennials are doing startups, and startups are good for agile, et cetera. So we're going to
Yes.
there's a lot, right? There's a good percentage in there, so it works that way.
And what I've seen is, and then this is where sort of I've started realizing my age shows, because my flexibility of thinking, unless I'm really working on it, deteriorates over with age. A millennial, they don't see constraints. They don't see like a triple constraint. We grew up with that triple constraint, right? They don't think of that as constraint at all. So.
Interesting.
Yeah. So a minute left. Anything else? Good. Thank you guys for hearing me out this morning.
Thank you.
I should mention, I think there is an agile Boston tonight, and here in Burlington, from agile Boston. Right. Usually, he won't let me go to agileboston.org.
They clamp down on all
Category
kinds
of
of
personal blog. So I can't confirm it. Worth checking out. I'm actually going to a DevOps meeting in the city where they're talking about the culture of the organization needed to support DevOps. So look up DevOps Boston if that's stuff. You and I were at the Burlington one. The good thing about it is they have free pizza like that.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And we're a whole pizza home. It sounds good. So that's why the reason I go.
Anything that's free beer.
Always works.
Always.
Good. Well, thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.